Morning, Brian, Joe, Phil, and friends. Meet Amy here. Amy is a Holstein Friesian cow. She is enjoying a good life, enjoying good pasture every day. She's producing lots of high-quality milk. She is a typical Australian dairy cow. But she doesn't realize that she and her friends are actually contributing to climate change and global warming through her methane emissions when she burps. She doesn't realize the fact that 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions in Australia are from sheep cattle. And she also doesn't realize that 67% of the total greenhouse gas emissions of the Australian agricultural sector, that's the entire thing, is from cattle and sheep. She doesn't have even the slightest idea of that. And this problem is actually not only an environmental one. It's also an economical one. It's also a big problem for farmers. Methane loss is 2 to 10% of the energy farmers give to their cows through their feeding them. It's just lost to the air, lost as methane, and it's 2 to 10%. That's a big amount. So we have a big problem here. Luckily, we have this very sexy and exciting solution to this. Drink wine. Drinking wine can actually help protect our climate. How's that? So when we make wine, we press juice from grapes. And after we press juice from grapes, we are left over with the skin, the seeds, the branches from the grapes itself, and the vines. And it's collectively known as grape marc. So that's a byproduct of after pressing the juice from grapes. And it can be fed to cattle. Mott et al. In 2014 did a research right here in Elmbank in Victoria. They fed grape marc to dairy cows, and they found a 20% reduction in methane emissions. It's 20%. It's the largest methane reduction effect found ever in the literature for using agricultural byproducts to reduce methane emissions. So how does grape marc do this? The researchers suggested 4 substances found in grape marc that might be responsible for this effect. Those are fat, tannin, tartaric acid, and lignin. Fat does so by killing or inhibiting the growth of bacteria and microorganisms in a cow's rumen that produces methane. The mechanism for tannin is not well known yet until today, but with tartaric acid, the researchers suggested that it might be part of this effect because its chemical structure is very similar to malic acid and fumaric acid, which is well known in the literature for reducing methane. And finally, with lignin, it takes up the space in a cow's rumen that could have otherwise been occupied by carbohydrates that when digested produces methane. So it takes up the space. So after talking about wine, we will naturally say, how about coffee? Because coffee is our next most socially important beverage. Unfortunately, research since the 1990s until today found that the byproduct of coffee brewing, which is spent coffee grounds, you know, when you go to a cafe, you hear the barista knocking their espresso handles to throw out the spent coffee grounds, that's the byproduct. It does not reduce methane emissions in cattle. They have tried them but found no effect on methane emissions, unfortunately. However, a Korean research in 2015 by Seo Jung and So found that actually it can still be used as a useful feedstuff. It can substitute for more expensive protein sources due to seasonality or geographic regions. So it can still be used as an alternative feed. So in summary, looking at grape marc and coffee, only grape marc was found to be able, as an agricultural byproduct, to reduce methane emissions in cattle. It's a 20% reduction. There were 2 separate researches on spent coffee grounds, each showing 6% and 4% reduction. But the thing is that these 2 are not statistically significant, so we can't conclude that they have an actual effect. In conclusion, grape marc can reduce cattle methane emissions by 20%, and it does so through its fat, tannin, lignin, and tartaric acid content. Coffee does not reduce methane, but can still be used as an alternative feed source. And learning from our 2 byproducts here, we can start to see that we have great potential in the future to explore these byproducts, either to reduce methane or to serve us other beneficial purposes. So, tonight, have a glass of wine and contribute to protecting our climate. Thank you.